I never planned to challenge the history books. I was simply studying architecture World Fair halls, glass domes spanning acres, terracotta palaces covered in ornamentation so complex we struggle to reproduce it today. Buildings said to be erected in months that would now require decades. This wasn't primitive construction powered by horse carts and hand tools. It looked inherited, then, almost on schedule, the disasters appeared. Great fires that erased entire cities. Floods that buried first floors overnight across continents. Earthquakes that struck with unnerving precision. Ask yourself, what are the odds that nearly every city hosting these architectural anomalies suffered catastrophic destruction within the same narrow historical window? With each disaster, something else vanished. Construction techniques disappeared. Architectural plans burned. Master craftsmen went silent. Population records fragmented. Census data stopped making sense. Orphan trains emerged, transporting hundreds of thousands of children with no clear origin. Asylums expanded at an impossible scale. Entire family lines dissolved into paperwork. That's when the real question surfaced, the one history never answers. If there truly was a different world before ours, where did all the people go? Not the buildings, not the infrastructure. The people, the witnesses. The survivors. I started with photographs, late 80s street scenes from San Francisco, Chicago, Moscow, Melbourne, Buenos Aires, streets being excavated. Buildings with their first floors buried. Entire neighborhoods dug out. The captions always said the same thing: street grading, urban improvement. But the scale was wrong. The timing was wrong. And no one seemed to question it. If cities worldwide were buried, why are the survivor stories missing? In San Francisco alone, between 1850 and 1915, the city appears to have regraded itself repeatedly. Not small adjustments, entire districts. Thousands of workers moved incomprehensible volumes of soil. No protests, no outrage over cost. No detailed records of where the earth came from or where it went. This pattern repeats globally. Chicago, Seattle, Boston, Paris, Moscow, Melbourne. Photographs show streets lowered or raised, buildings half submerged, windows becoming basements. Officially, these were urban upgrades. But upgrades don't happen everywhere, all at once, across continents. So where are the eyewitness accounts? If a massive mud or debris event occurred, survivors should have written about it. Instead, what we find is something subtler: silence. Newspapers describe the rebuilding, but rarely the cause. Records confirm excavation, but never explain why it was necessary on such a scale. Chicago, after the 1871 fire, is a perfect example. The city rebuilt at astonishing speed. Grand structures appeared within a decade, yet detailed construction records are thin. Architectural plans are incomplete. Worker testimonies are nearly non-existent. It's as if someone carefully recorded that buildings existed, but not how they came to be, and this is where demographics start to unravel the story. Between 1854 and 1929, over 250,000 children were transported across America on orphan trains. Officially, they were street children, victims of poverty and immigration. But 250,000 isn't charity, it's a demographic reset. At the same time, something unprecedented happened. Hundreds of massive psychiatric institutions were built across the United States. These weren't small hospitals. They were palatial structures, architecturally identical to World Fair buildings and grand civic halls. Who filled them? The records show diagnoses that repeat with disturbing consistency: melancholia, acute mania, amnesia, confusion of thought, nostalgia. Many patients had no documented history. No family records. No place of origin. Just names and diagnoses that explain one thing very well: memory loss. What if these weren't treatment centers? What if they were containment facilities? If a catastrophic event disrupted civilization, survivors would wander disoriented, traumatized, telling stories that contradicted the new narrative. What better way to discredit a witness than to institutionalize them? Label memory as delusion? Mix truth with madness until the two become indistinguishable. Children posed a different problem. Children remember and talk. So they were moved, scattered, integrated into families with no connection to their past. Their memories dismissed as imagination. And this wasn't just America, asterisk. Australia's child migration schemes. Canada's Home Children Program. British child relocations. Russian foundling hospitals. Argentina's orphan systems. Different nations, same time frame, same scale. Same hollow documentation. How do dozens of countries implement nearly identical population management programs without clear coordination, especially in an era before global communication? Unless they weren't coordinating, unless they were responding to the same event. Now return to the buildings. Courthouses, train stations, libraries, exhibition hall structures that appear fully formed with no believable construction timeline. Many may not have been built at all, but excavated, repurposed to maintain them. A new system was needed. And that's when credentialing appears. Suddenly, you needed formal certification to be an architect, engineer, or doctor. Old knowledge systems were dismissed as primitive. Experience replaced by paperwork. Who couldn't get credentials? The elderly. The traumatized. The institutionalized. The displaced children. By the early 1900s, the narrative stabilized. Photographs aligned. Records became consistent. The new world solidified, but one generation still remained. Asterisk. Those born in the 1850s and 1860s, the last adults who might remember the world before began dying en masse during World War I and the Spanish flu. Another demographic rupture. Another break in memory. So where did the survivors go? Some ended up in asylums, their memories pathologized. Some were scattered on orphan trains, their identities erased. Some stayed silent, choosing survival over being labeled mad. Some died in wars and pandemics, just as their stories would have mattered most. Not one dramatic act of suppression, but thousands of quiet ones. Social pressure, bureaucracy, medical authority, education systems, time. Within 2 generations, the previous world became myth. I started looking for people. I found absences. Gaps where voices should be. Records documenting everything except meaning. Photographs showing excavation without explanation. Maybe everything happened exactly as we're told. Maybe the buildings were built in years by horse and cart. Maybe 250,000 children were all street orphans. Maybe every city just needed massive grading projects, but the questions remain. What would it take to make an entire civilization forget? History doesn't hide the answer. It buries it along with the witnesses.